Let me tell you, first of all, one of the reasons why I wanted to come here, one of the many reasons I wanted to come here. When I launched my show 4 years ago, we had Mark Cuban on the program. Yeah. May have seen he was in the news this week. And he started going on about how bad America's race history was and how ashamed he was of America, and that's why he was at all these protests, and he felt it was really important to stand up and speak out about human rights violations. And then it got awkward when I asked him about all the money he was taking from China. And then he dropped a bunch of F-bombs, and I thought, I really enjoy this feeling of proving Mark Cuban wrong. And so here I am at a Trump rally, a strong, intelligent woman to prove Mark Cuban wrong again.
Tonight, we have something big happening, and we are going to do something that we've never done before. Over the weekend, we got an invitation that we never really expected to get, and that was from Team Trump to show up tonight in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and for yours truly to make some remarks on the president's behalf, or really, more accurately, just to explain why I'm voting for him. And I said yes. So tonight, after the show, I'll be headed to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I will appear with Trump at his last Pennsylvania rally before the vote. And I will proudly explain to that audience and beyond why I think it's absolutely essential that he win this election and that we not put Kamala Harris into the Oval Office as our president. I have all sorts of reasons that won't come as any sort of a surprise to the people listening to this show. And I'm going to go through some of that in more detail right now with you.
But I do want to tell you the main reasons I am voting for Donald Trump. Number one, immigration. He mentioned it. And people like Laken Riley. I'll be thinking about her tomorrow all day. 22 years old, killed in Georgia, a young nursing student by an illegal. I'll be thinking about Jocelyn Nungare, 12 years old, in Texas, murdered by 2 Venezuelan illegals. President Trump closed the border. Kamala Harris opened it by choice. It wasn't accidental. She said it would be humane. That's what she and her boss believed. Tell it to Laken Riley's family. There was nothing humane about it. He closed it. They opened it. It was an intentional choice, and there's no reason not to believe they won't do it again. The boys should not be in the girls' sports. The boys should not be in the girls' bathrooms. The boys should not be in the girls' locker rooms. Peyton McNabb, North Carolina sophomore in high school, slammed so hard in the face by a volleyball hit at her by a boy pretending to be a girl, she suffered traumatic brain injury and permanent paralysis. Kamala Harris looks at her and says, "Be kind, suck it up." And that's what's right. Why do our girls have to face brain damage in order to be kind to boys who want to invade their sports? And by the way, they are going into the women's prisons. She changed the law in California to make sure the taxpayers would pay for their sex change operations. She was not just following the law, she changed the law. President Trump will stop it. He got mocked by the left for saying he would be a protector of women. He will be a protector of women, and it's why I'm voting for him. He will close the border. He will keep the boys out of girls' sports and where they don't belong. And you know what else? One more thing. He will look out for our boys, too. our forgotten boys, and our forgotten men. Guys like you. Guys like these guys who've got the calluses on their hands, who work for a living with the beards and the tats, who maybe have a beer after work and don't want to be judged by people like Oprah and Beyonce, who will never have to face the consequences of her disastrous economic policies. These guys will. He gets it. President Trump gets it. He will not look at our boys like they're second-class citizens. And ladies out there who want a bit of girl power in this election, let me tell you something. How can you win when the sons and the husbands and the brothers and the dads you love are losing? It's not a win. We care, young women and older, about the lives of our children, the safety of our children. And we need not get so obsessed with what happens when they're in the womb that we forget about taking care of them once we're here and they're loved. Last point, what I don't want, what I don't think you want, is the left's version of masculinity. You see that ad they did about Trump voters trying to encourage women to lie to their husbands so that they could vote for her instead of Trump? That's their version of what marriage looks like. An overbearing husband who bullies his wife into saying she voted one way as opposed to an honest, open relationship. Oh, wait, I'm talking about Kamala and Doug. Okay, sorry. Where was that story in the news? Where was that story? I don't remember a single media person, not one, who sat with him, asked him about the abuse allegations against him by a successful professional attorney who has great details, who has receipts, who has witnesses. No one even asked about it. I'm not into their version of toxic masculinity or new masculinity. I prefer the old version. Them, all of you, and I prefer a president who understands how to be strong and how to fight. I hope all of you do what I did last week. Vote Trump and get 10 friends to vote Trump too.
The countdown is certainly on now.
And look, it's all about Pennsylvania. This is shaping up to be the key swing state that will decide who becomes the next president of the United States. Kamala Harris has spent all her events in Pennsylvania. Donald Trump, however, he went to North Carolina first, and it's there he was talking about tariffs. It's a favorite of Donald Trump. He's promising tariffs, and he says it's going to stimulate the economy. Of course, there's a mix of opinions on that, but we know the economy is a big driver for voters in this election. What he said is he's going to level tariffs at Mexico on day one, and he's going to tie that to the number of people crossing illegally at the US-Mexico border.
If they don't stop this onslaught of criminals and drugs coming into our country, I'm going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything they send in.
Over the past 4 years, Kamala has orchestrated the most egregious betrayal that any leader in American history has ever inflicted upon our people.
And of course, if Donald Trump wins, Australia does have a free trade agreement with the US, but we're not immune to any tariffs ourselves. So this is going to be a big factor to watch over the coming weeks, months, if Donald Trump is successful. But there's no guarantee that Donald Trump's getting over the line. The polls are very tight. And in fact, Kamala Harris has been pulling ahead in some key places, including, quite surprisingly, in Iowa, of all places. Now, that might too be tariff connected for all those farmers who are worried about tariffs affecting their exports. But at the same time, what we're seeing is Kamala Harris putting in a very busy few last weeks. The last few days have been no exception. She's been out at multiple events before her major event in Philadelphia this evening.
So, Pennsylvania, I'm here to ask for your vote. I'm here to ask for your vote. Pennsylvania, the race is not yet over. Okay, we got a lot of work to do, and we have got to finish strong. And make no mistake, we will win. We will win.
While we're talking about how tight these polls are, what I want to say again before we start getting the results tomorrow is a tight result in a swing state will ultimately give whoever wins all of the state's electoral college votes. So we can have even just a few thousand votes decide in this country of over 300 million people who will be the next president of the United States. But that may well end up being a big margin in the electoral college. So that's a big part of the analysis we're going to be doing tomorrow. It's also a big part of why there's concern that there will be some kind of conflict after the election result, and especially if it takes a while for us to get a result. The thing is, 2024 is very different from 2020. Many of the people involved in the January 6 riot at the Capitol have been charged and convicted. Over 900 people have been sentenced to some kind of jail time. If you're not one of those supporters who's already in jail, you're probably looking at the situation and thinking there's not much in it for you to try and do the same thing again. The BLM riots aren't happening. The George Floyd element just simply isn't there this time. And when we're talking about the pro-Palestine protests, there's any chance that could happen as well, but there's certainly nothing significantly on the radar here. We are seeing local law enforcement very prepared. The fences have been going up and they've been quite specific, saying that that's a deterrent factor. Small businesses have been putting boards up. For many of them, that's an insurance decision. If they don't get it up and something happens, they probably can't claim. Not something you want to waste your time on. So I know there's been a lot of speculation about this. I would say for now, there's really not any kind of instance that I would say we have to be ready for something like this in DC beyond just always being ready. And it's more likely that there'd be something locally based at a polling booth like what we saw in Arizona in 2020, or a lone wolf kind of incident, which is always a risk in America, a country with hundreds of millions of guns. So as we get into this final 24 hours, it is notable just how tight it is. Here's Mick Mulvaney, former chief of staff to the White House, saying that he does see just how tight this race is and how this could be a cause for conflict.
There have been a couple of races where the Republican has won the Electoral College and lost the popular election. People say those are close elections. Donald Trump won easily in the Electoral College in 2016, lost the national popular vote. But yes, it just feels like it's very, very close because the country feels very divided. Walk down an ordinary street in this country and half the folks are going to be for Trump and half the people are going to be against him. And I think that's going to carry through on Tuesday night.
So tomorrow we'll potentially find out if we're going to have the first female president of the United States or the first president to win a non-consecutive term since Grover Cleveland after surviving 2 assassination attempts, and how many lawsuits. It really will be one for the history books no matter what happens tomorrow evening.